In episode 3 of Yellowjackets, finally, when it comes to Taissa, they start to investigate her past and the no-eyed man, and alongside that happening, a potential theory, one that maybe not something that people might be happy about, does kind of appear when it comes to what's going on in the past. So getting to the recap, let's begin with the past. And despite every reason to just offer and continue to live his life in hiding, Ben decides to let Mari go. And unfortunately for him, she ends up leading everyone to his cave. But on the positive end of things, because Shauna needs something to funnel all of her anger, her hate, her issues into, Mari providing her some type of thing to do that with, it allows those two to get along to the point of, well, they're never going to be friends, but at the very least, you get a sense that whatever issues they have can get set aside, and maybe this could be used eventually as sort of their means of getting back to being at least cordial. But unfortunately for the group, the cave that Mari gets them to, it's seemingly not as simple as it appeared initially, so they have to split up while they're in the cave. And while one set goes off in one direction, Shauna, Aquila, and I believe Van go one direction, and they go the direction which has some type of gas leak or other issue that causes them to hallucinate. And for each one, the hallucination is different. For Van, she ends up back in the old cabin. She ends up sitting in a chair, and she gets attacked by various hands. There's a fire, and it's just a whole trauma thing for her. Aquila has a bit of a weirder one. As noted by Travis in the last episode, Aquila seems to have some type of connection with the animals, and she literally has conversations with, it's either an alpaca or a llama, but I keep forgetting what about their face helps you determine which one is which. There's also what's happening with Shauna, where she keeps trying to swim to her son, who is at least of age to say mommy and kind of recognize her, but she can't get to him. And all of these three storylines merge together when they end up back in class. Now, in this class, Lottie, for some reason, is in the teacher role, and Jackie is alive. And Jackie is playing with, oh my god, it was popular in the 90s, I forgot what it's called, but it's basically those wristbands that you just slap on. And for some reason, Aquila's not affected by this. But when it comes to Shauna, who has it slapped on her throat, it's killing her. And I think Van even got hit and it kind of hurts her too. But for some reason, Aquila's pushed to now become the savior, and Lottie's telling her she has to do something. Jackie, being who she is, tells them to stop being a baby. And eventually, Ben saves them from this. But because Ben tried to kill them all, he doesn't get any type of grace for his one good act. He is being dragged off, likely to stand trial. Taking things to the modern times, we finally get something good when it comes to Taissa and Van. For Van, it's that her stage 4 cancer is not progressing more and is actually starting to become not stable, but she's slowly but surely entering remission. That's good for her, doesn't do much for the story. But for Taissa, she is hanging out with Van after she shares what's going on, and Taissa's watching old Pee Wee Herman Playhouse. And in one of the commercials, she sees an ad for Ozzy's Homemade Ice Cream Parlor, and in that ad, she sees the no-eyed man. With that, it seems like we're finally going to get somewhere with that, but when Taissa looks it up, the place is closed. When she goes to the location, it seems like it's been in disrepair for much longer than COVID or anything like that. So she decides she's going to investigate, and the only thing she sees is a fox with some type of bird in its mouth, and this just leads to the idea that the wilderness is hungry for more. Just giving them Natalie's not going to do, and it gives you absolutely nothing regarding what the no-eyed man might have been about or why he's connected to this, besides the simple idea that, this is just something that creeped little Taissa out, and that's why she remembers it and keeps seeing it. Which leads to the final topic, which pretty much just deals with Shauna and what she's going through. As shown, Shauna, despite having really no desire for the madness that comes with being a Yellow Jacket veteran or alumni, however you want to put it, She has Lottie in her household, Misty in her life, and thankfully Taissa and Van usually stick to their own, so she don't have to deal with their drama as well. But unfortunately, with the way things are, Lottie getting closer to Callie is becoming a bigger and bigger issue, and then with her being Lottie getting Callie this necklace, that's it for Shauna, and she kicks. She not only cusses, but she also kicks out Lottie. Then with Misty, she decides, Misty that is, to try to prove Walter wrong, try to have a conversation with Shauna, maybe try to remix her perception of what went down with Lottie. Like she's trying to get the inside scoop or something with Callie and all that, but the problem with that is Shauna doesn't really care that much. She just doesn't want her daughter looped in or more aware of what happened in the past than she does now. And add on that she has this potential stalker going on, it makes it so when Shauna is driving them somewhere and their brake lines get cut, rather than think it's Melissa or some other entity that's doing it, she decides to put it all on Misty. Now, why exactly would Misty decide to stalk Shauna when she knows what she is already? Why exactly would she decide to cut Shauna's brakes with her going to be in the car, knowing Shauna has already hit a few people before and also is capable of killing folks? I don't know why Misty would take that type of risk. I mean, Misty is a little bit off, but she usually tries to take more calculated risks when it comes to her fellow Yellowjackets. So with that in mind, why she would do all this makes absolutely no sense, but Shauna wants something logical in her life for once, and knowing Misty is off her kilter most of the time, she decides to blame Misty, and Misty, who's so insulted by this, decides, you know what, I'm done. I'm done with Shauna, I'm done with Lottie, I'm done with everybody. And she decides to burn the picture they took during their graduation. Well, not the graduation, the reunion, and we don't see her go to Walter to maybe try to reconcile, so either she's going to be alone for now, or maybe Walter may show up. Hopefully not with "I told you so," but maybe kind of swoop in and let it be clear that what Misty is used to is abnormal, not healthy, potentially even toxic, but he is ready and willing to give her something that she deserves. Get into the review section. I'm so thankful that they finally gave Taissa something interesting, and granted, Van is piggybacking. She still has nothing to necessarily give, but at least they tried. I mean, granted, the no-eyed man thing didn't really go anywhere notable. I mean, right now it just feels like this is just something traumatic she saw in her childhood that's kind of carried over, but maybe they may do something with it. I mean, I've been looking for something to kind of glassed onto it comes to Taissa for a while now, and even Van to an extension, but let's just cross our fingers, cross our toes, and hoping that this isn't just gonna be childhood trauma that keeps kind of popping up in her head as she deals with different things, but may actually develop more and not just be the catalyst for someone needing to be killed because the wilderness calls for it. Especially since, as of now, it seems Taissa is crediting the remission that Van's going through based off of the sacrifice of Natalie. The second highlight for me is that even though it may be the worst kind of twist that this show could have, I do kind of feel interested in the idea that maybe it's not just the gas that's in that cave, but maybe that whole area is wooded and kind of barren of people for a reason. For when it comes to the skeleton we've seen and little markings, it makes me wonder, maybe there's something in the air, maybe there's something in the ground, the plants, the animals, that kind of drive people nuts a little bit and have them hearing and seeing things. And maybe that's why that person potentially killed themselves and all this other stuff. And granted, is it a little bit too logical? Potentially. But at the same time, you can't discount the fact that these girls are under immense stress and fear. This whole hallucination thing was caused by gas, and it's very much in line with the type of stuff they would see and experience on a regular basis. So who's to say that despite all the fantasy, supernatural, and all the elements, maybe there's a logical reason for everything that's happening. It's just, it hasn't really been pushed that well up to now, so it was never something that seemed like a serious factor. So for the last highlight, it's just Misty waking up to the fact that she may not have friends outside potentially Walter. And this is a highlight for us mainly because we're very much invested in Misty. Granted, is it mostly because of Christina Ricci? Absolutely. But also because since we gotten to know Misty as a teenager, got told all about how she didn't really have friends, her struggles, and then, of course, this experience she had with Crystal. It's like we know Misty has had the experience of having a best friend, someone who could give us something reciprocal. And watching her, since Crystal died, try to find it in the rest of the Yellowjackets by offering herself, being a people pleaser and all that, it's been hard to watch, and there's always been hope that maybe she'll be accepted for, even if she is out of her damn mind. She belongs to them. She is one of them. And as Sean has shown, while they have no issue using her crazy, at the same time, they're not going to really accept her crazy. So I could only hope that with this wake up call, maybe she'll accept Walter more, and Walter won't do I told you so situation to kind of dig the knife in the wound, so that maybe Misty can move on. And now, what does moving on mean when it comes to this show, considering what Taissa and Van may have to do, or what Taissa has in her head in terms of, it's time for the next sacrifice? Who knows? But considering Shauna still has a stalker, and Misty and Walter are still part of that detective group, she would have to come back into the fold sooner or later. But here's hoping that with her now knowing how these people are, and her hopefully having a family relationship with Walter, maybe she'll come in brand new in a way that makes it so that her group will actually learn to value her and learn that she's not a doormat for them to dust themselves off of, clean off their shoes, and then leave outside in the cold. But overall, when it comes to Yellowjackets at this point, we're about a quarter of the way through season 3, with there being about 10 episodes, I think, instead of 9 like last season. And I would say Yellowjackets is still kind of crawl out of that sophomore slump it had. So until it starts delivering quality episodes one after another, and it doesn't have that still lopsided thing where the past is far more interesting than the present, it's hard to say that this is climbing and not still on this little bit of a plateau, which you can't tell if it's slow in decline, slowly gaining. And all I can say is, with these notable shifts that's happening for the adults, I'm trying to be optimistic about the potential of things getting better. But at the very least, while I don't think things will get worse, I do think they're going to get interesting to the point where it's really going to determine whether or not, if this is going to be a 5-season show, if season 4 or 5 are even worth producing for Showtime /Paramount Plus.